And let's do this. So in a lot of games nowadays, there is this time strict but satisfying mechanism, like parry or something. Could be parry, could be perfect dodge, could be anything. And you think it is cool, you want to try it, right? It doesn't work for you. And at some point, you're just going to give up, thinking maybe it's not for you, and it's a shame on the developer side because it's definitely not your fault. Here's the thing. To pull off that parry thing, you need to align two things: hit point and parry point. Now, this is the anime's attack animation. And at some point on this timeline, the anime is going to hit you. So let's call this hit point. Okay. Now this is the parry animation, and at some point on this timeline, the parry is going to happen. So let's call this the parry point. So hit point and parry point, right? You have to align those two things to parry successfully. So what's happening when you fail to parry? A lot of things could go wrong. The first thing is the attack animation. Can you figure out where exactly the hit point is by just looking at the animation itself? Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. It depends on the developers. We have all seen misleading attack animation and even trolling animations from the developers. But I'll leave this part to the developers. I think it's their canvas. I respect whatever they do in this part. Even sometimes they clearly don't know what they're doing, or they just want to see you panic rolling all over the place. So I'll leave it to the developers. Move on to the next part, the parry animation. This is a player character thing, right? And most developers are trying their best to help the players out. But the thing is, they all came from different backgrounds. They all have different designing philosophies. They're all trying to give the players what they believe is the best. So the result is basically a question mark here. You really don't know what to expect, because they decide this for you, although they're really trying to help. So it's like if this is a Monster Hunter game, the parry point on this timeline should be very close to the start of the animation. That's how Capcom do these kind of things. And if it's from another company like From Software, then the parry point is going to be more like here. And that's where the parry becomes unnecessarily difficult for the players. Most developers are trying their best to make the second timeline transparent, so you don't have to worry about it. So they do a lot of research and testing, and let's just say they did a good job, and they find a point on this timeline. It works for like 70% of people. Okay, 70% of people will find it's very intuitive for them. They don't have to worry about the second timeline. It feels like it doesn't exist. But if you're not the type of player that the developers had in mind while making the game, then you will have more to learn before you can parry successfully. It means like not only you need to learn the enemy's attack animation, you will also have to deal with the second timeline. You will have to get used to a parry time that is not designed for you, that you're not familiar with, that you're not used to. It's something you have to try and learn. And it is not over yet, because there's another factor. There is a thing that I haven't mentioned yet. It's our local delays. Every system you can run the game on has delays. So even you are the model player, okay? Even if you're the lucky 70% and the game is exactly designed for you, okay? Even if that's the case. Just because your controller is plugged into the wrong USB port, and it will cause delay, by the way. Additional input delay. Your game experience will still be ruined. So you cannot parry, and it's because of parry timing that is unclear and being forced on you. No one has ever showed you when to press that button, because no one actually knows the parry timing on your system. Okay, so what's the answer to that? Here's my advice. When I tried to parry for the first time in a game, instead of just judge my timing, instead of just simply let me fail or succeed, the game should treat my input like there's a reason behind it. Okay, the game should set up or calibrate itself according to my input. The game should be like, hey, we don't know you and we don't know your software and hardware environment, so we're not gonna judge you this time. We're gonna make your parry successful by changing the game accordingly. We're not gonna judge you this time. And we see you press parry button at this time point. Let's make it a successful parry by making the following changes to the game. And after that initial calibration, as long as I have consistency in my parry timing, the game should allow me to parry successfully. So let's do a recap. Okay, there are 3 sectors to a successful parry. The first one is the enemy attack animation, and we will leave it to the developers. I'm not suggesting anything new here. Okay, for the second one, that since the developers don't know what's good for me, maybe they should accept my input for this part. Maybe they should let me calibrate. Maybe they should let me to decide. And the third part is a pure problem. And we need to fix that problem. We need the developers to know it's a problem that we want to be fixed. And we also need them to provide a tool for us to neutralize that delay. So the solution is to let the game learn from our inputs. And in that way, we can calibrate the game for us. And another thing is like, I actually simplified a lot of things to make it easier to explain. Like, the calibration should not be based on just the initial input for obvious reasons. The calibration should keep going. And the correct timing, the correct parry timing the game is expecting should be able to shift over time. And also, all the time points that I have mentioned is actually not just a time point. Although it's very small, but it's a window. I just put it that way so it's easier for me to explain. And the developers get to decide how big the window is. The difficulty should be defined by how big the window is, not how inconvenient it is to figure out where the window is. They shouldn't decide where the window is. They should let me to calibrate. Let me put that window on the second timeline. Because it's hard to teach me where the window is. Leave it to me. Learn from my initial input. And let's set up the game together. And I guess that's it. Peace.